Good morning, everyone. My name is Jim Tackett, and I'm Executive Director of Forward in the Fifth. And I would like to take this opportunity to welcome you to the center and also share a little bit with you. Some of you, has everyone been to the center before? Most? Okay. I would like to say that this facility serves as a one-stop hub for southern and eastern Kentucky in our 5th Congressional District. Headquartered in this great building is also the staff of the Center for Rural Development, Forward in the Fifth, and many of our other affiliates, Pride, Unite, Tourism, and Southern Kentucky Economic Development. But in this team, and in this building, and in this team, we are all geared and we are all challenged with improving our region across this state in multiple areas. In laying today's foundation, I would like to take a couple minutes to talk about Forward in the Fifth, its past, and where we are today. Forward in the Fifth was created more than 25 years ago by Congressman Rogers, and it was a brainchild of him and several other key leaders across our region. It was created due to the large discrepancy and the alarming numbers and statistics that we saw in educational attainment. Early in the 80s, reports began circulating that Kentucky's 5th District was dead last in educational attainment across the nation, 435 out of 435. Desiring to see the pendulum swing the other direction, Congressman Rogers challenged each of us across the region to immediately begin working on educational issues with business leaders, parents, educators, and students. And as a result, begin to make changes in how we viewed education and increasing our solutions and our challenges. In fact, Forward in the Fifth was an early catalyst of many of you who are educators in the room may remember our Kentucky Education Reform Act in the early 90s. Because that platform asked our K-12 system at that time to begin looking at how we were doing business in our schools, in our communities, and then also looking at what we needed to resolve and what we needed to change in order to make our students more competitive across the country. Many of us know in this room that CARA was the impetus for much that would then occur both in our higher ed and even today in most recently educational changes that occurred in 2009, passed by our Kentucky legislature. Kentucky's new approach, called Unbridled Learning, charges both our K-12 community as well as our higher ed institutions to work more closely together than we ever have, looking at how we can bridge some of the gaps that in the past have become major barriers and challenges for students to reach their ultimate educational attainment level. These efforts include implementing Common Core standards, increasing graduation rates, decreasing the need for developmental coursework at our colleges and universities, elevating college and career readiness standards, to name just a few. So as we look in the 21st century to where we need to be in education, we still have a monumental mountain to climb. We've made great strides, but we, again, continue to need to work together as community leaders, as educators, as parents, and as students. As mentioned earlier, partnerships are key in the success of education and improving education, economic development, etc. in our region. It's my pleasure now to introduce Lonnie Lawson, President and CEO of the Center for Rural Development. Under Lonnie's direction, the center is a true partner with Forward in the Fifth, and we can work together, and we do work together daily to improve the quality of life in our region. Lonnie?
Thank you, Jim. As Jim said, the Center and Forward in the Fifth do partner on all of the educational initiatives. I want to welcome you here today. I want to welcome you to the Center, welcome you to Somerset, and I applaud your efforts in education. It's something that I just really think that we've got to continue that fight for. We've got to get out of that bottom rung of the educational attainment level. We've got to keep raising that bar, and the Center is really, really proud to be a part of that along with Forward in the Fifth. We worked really, really hard in getting Forward in the Fifth back into this region, back into Somerset, quite honestly. For a long time, those of you that are familiar with Forward in the Fifth know that Forward in the Fifth was located outside the 5th District. And one of the things that I really set about to do was really see if we could not get Forward in the Fifth back in here, trying to make a difference in this region, and we were very successful in doing that. We're thrilled with the work that they're doing. They have an excellent board of directors now that has education, and I see a couple of the board members out here that has education at the heart of what they're trying to accomplish. They put together a really strong strategic plan, and I just really applaud the efforts of everyone involved. And I think this component today is really, really critical in the success of the program. Getting those local education affiliates in place, getting that grassroots support. Congressman, we've seen it in the Pride program, we've seen it in other programs. If you don't have that grassroots level support, you're not going to get very far. And that's really what I think these initiatives are about, is getting that grassroots level support. So I applaud your efforts. It's my pleasure now to introduce your keynote speaker. Congressman Rogers, as Jim said, was obviously the visionary leader behind the Center for Rural Development. All of the other affiliate organizations, the Pride program, the Unite program, the SCED program, Tour SEKY, and Forward in the Fifth. So he's a man with a great, great vision, a man with great passion. He absolutely loves Southern and Eastern Kentucky. Elected to Congress in 1980, he set about trying to change things, and one of the very first things he tackled was this education issue, because he did not want to be dead last in educational attainment in his congressional district. But he saw challenges throughout the region, and he has brought together grassroots organizations that help tackle all of those challenges. He's risen through the ranks in Congress. He now holds the chair of the Appropriations Committee in the House of Representatives, and we're proud to call him our own 5th Congressional District, Congressman Hal Rogers. That way you can move around.
Yeah, okay, good. Yeah, I'd rather be among you than in front of you. Well, welcome, and thank you for being a part of Forward in the Fifth. I think it was 1986 when U.S. News and World Report came out with their statistics on the percentage of high school graduates living in each congressional district. And as Lonnie has said, it had us dead last in the percent of high school graduates living among us. In other words, dropouts. So with that terrible news, I called together a group of statewide civic leaders to Shakertown, just for a weekend of barnstorming. We had no agenda other than letting our hair down and trying to figure out some way to tackle this gross problem that we all had. And we had some really good statewide people there. The TV guy, comment on Kentucky, Al Smith, for example. And out of that came this organization. And the idea behind Forward in the Fifth, and that's a name, by the way, that Al Smith came up with. He was publisher of the London, Kentucky newspaper at the time. And when this story came out, I went over there and we sat down and chatted and chewed up the fat. And out of that came this conference. And out of that conference came this organization. The idea was that this is more than a teacher's problem. Teachers can teach, but they can't make kids go to school. That's up to the community. That's up to the parents, and it's up to the civic leadership of the community. Because if a community doesn't have an educated workforce, it's not going to be able to attract jobs. So even if you don't have a child in school, the quality of the school system is terribly important to the community. And so we set upon the idea of trying to get people in everyday walks of life in every community re-involved with their schools. As we've consolidated our schools into huge, humongous buildings with billions of students, it seemed like, kids have a lesser involvement in the things that they used to be involved in. Cheerleading and basketball and soccer and baseball and school plays and the school newspaper and so on. And so they have lost a lot of the intimacy that smaller schools provided. I went my first 5 grades to a one-room school in Wayne County. Where's Wayne County? Yeah. Out at Barrier, near Coopersville, towards Stearns. The post office no longer exists. It was named for my mother's father, Barrier. Anyway, one-room school. First 8 grades in one room, half this size, maybe even less. Second graders in that corner, third graders over here, sixth graders here, seventh and fourth and whatever. And the single teacher would go from group to group and have the lesson for the day. And the beauty of it was, if you were a little bit smarter than your second grade colleagues, you'd sort of begin to listen to that third grade class teaching. And if you were a bit slower than the rest in the 5th grade, you might be listening to the 4th grade class. And the teacher sort of understood that. So it was sort of a one-size-fits-all. And, I've reflected on that over the years. I'm sure you all have too. But that's not a bad thing. I just wonder if we ought to think about that as we plan for the future. Hey, I'm no education expert, but I think it had a lot to do with keeping families involved with their school. Every family who had a child in school was a part of that school. There were bake sales and there were picnics together and whatever. And it seemed like the school prospered because the families were more involved with what was going on in the school system. I long for that in our system. I suspect you do too. But again, you're powerless to change it, I guess. But Forward in the Fifth is not powerless. If we can involve people, re-involve people in their own school systems, in their community, and effect some changes for the better, this is a place for you to utilize for your own benefit, to do just that. So I encourage you to keep involved with Forward in the Fifth. Bring your ideas here. You may think they're far out, and some may be. But this is the place sort of to air them out. Forward in the Fifth was designed and meant to be the leading edge, to be a bit outside the box, to think free thoughts, to climb out of your everyday life and think about the future. That's what Forward in the Fifth is supposed to be, a real place for you to challenge yourself and challenge the system and challenge the education mores of the time. We all get in ruts, and we just take what comes day to day because you're too busy to think anything else. But as teachers and as educators, you've got to do that. You're the people who challenge the rest of us, especially those that you are teaching, but not just them. I'm challenging you to challenge us, the adults, the communities, to re-involve themselves, to be sure that their schools are doing the very best that they can, because the community will not prosper nor last unless the young people are getting a quality education in that system. And then after they have graduated, is where another of the organizations headquartered here tries to help, and that is the SCED, the Southern Kentucky Economic Development Foundation, trying to recruit factories and businesses to our region to provide those jobs that will keep those graduates among us, and so we can reap the benefit of what you've taught them at home. So I'm proud of the LEAP program. I want to congratulate the winners of those grants. We hope that's the seed money that will give you the spur that will get your local communities involved, more so than they are. Thank you for being a part of this. Thank you for traveling the distances that you have. We hope you enjoy your stay, and more importantly, we hope that you walk away from here with something really valuable that you can use back home in your profession. Thank you. God bless.
Thank you very much, Congressman. We always appreciate your vision and your direction for our organization and for our region. So we're glad that you could spend this morning with us. This morning, we want to move toward some of the business that we're here for, and that is to call our communities to action, as Congressman Rogers just did. We have 5 grants that we will be awarding this morning for our second round of LEAP funding. And what I would like to do is recognize each of our grantees and give you just a blip of what their project entails. And as I call your name, I would encourage you to stand. And at the conclusion of our program, then we will take some photographs as well. The first grantee that I have in no particular order will be Wayne County and Monticello. Will those folks please stand for us? Wayne County and Monticello is partnering through their community education program, and they will be looking at selecting students from both school districts and developing a service learning and college and career readiness program. So 40 students once a month will join together and look at issues within their local community that will impact not only currently, but will impact them as they move through the educational pipeline at the high school level and then on to post-secondary education. So thank you all very much. Our next awardee is Jenkins Independent. Many of you have heard, and many of you may have students who actually participate in dual programs and in other opportunities that those students can actually obtain college credit while they're in high school. Jenkins' proposal is, again, a college and career ready. If you see a theme here, that is because currently in Kentucky, only about 1/3 of our students are deemed college and career ready. We have a benchmark that has been set by the state that by 2015, 67% of those students will reach that mark. So Jenkins is, again, looking at opportunities for these students to take college credit. They're partnering with the University of Pikeville. They've had previous students that have done this, so they're wanting to expand that program. The other neat thing that I think will happen with this program is they will be instituting a mentor program. So high school students who have been in this initiative will mentor and encourage middle school students to do the same thing. So again, we continue to reach out and encourage those students to reach and strive for highest attainment. So thank you very much. Our next grantee is Bath County Schools. Bath County has entitled their project Wildcat Leadership Council, and this project will identify freshmen at their high school through a competitive process, and these students will again work on issues and events related to college awareness and college participation. They will explore such areas as healthcare, economic development, law, government, and many of those issues, because as we continue to see in our region and across the country, unfortunately, many of our students, and in some cases our adults, don't have a true understanding of what civic leadership and civic duties are. I know Congressman has shared that with us times in the past. So we again want to increase that knowledge and their ability to be active citizens across our region. Thank you. Our next grantee is Big Sandy Community and Technical College. Big Sandy will actually be working with two of our counties in the region, Floyd County and Johnson County. This will be an educator professional development program, again looking at how we can reach some of our students that have maybe larger barriers to overcome for them to actually include and improve their educational attainment. We're looking at the culture piece, and in many places, both in schools and in our communities, culture is oftentimes an impediment, but also can be a great resource in order for folks to achieve what they need to do. So this professional development will be provided to both our secondary educators in that area as well as post-secondary in our college, and they will form partnerships to begin reaching out to those students within the region. So thank you. Our last grantee, and I'm not sure if they are here or not, they had an emergency that came up. Our last grantee is Jackson Independent Schools. Jackson Jackson Independent will again work on career events for students, offer career nights, not only for the students, but bringing in those parents and providing follow-up to those parents, not as a one-time, but multiple times throughout the school year to be a bridge and encourage those students to pursue post-secondary education and options as well. So we'd like to recognize Jackson Independent as well. Each of you have great ideas and vision for our region, but what we would like to do now is to allow you to hear from some of our first phase LEAP participants and awardees. So I'm going to ask each of them to come up and share briefly a summary of their program. They were awarded in April of this year, and they will talk about their project. When they finish, you are welcome to ask them questions and get additional information. If you think of things after they leave, we are happy to link you up with those folks. But again, as we begin talking about transforming our region in education, it is our hope and our desire that each of you in this room will become a network for yourselves and for each other as we move forward in education. So our first grantee from Phase 1 is Clay County Schools. I'm going to ask Dr. Deanne Allen if she'll come and share their project. Thank you.
Good morning. First, I'd like to thank Congressman Rogers, the Forward and the Fifth Board, Mr. Lawson, and Mr. Tackett for this opportunity. Clay County, we have a vision that in 4 years after entering high school, every student will graduate. That was not the case, and we're making progress. One of the things that our community began to realize is that students' failure to graduate is not a high school problem, but it is a middle school problem, an elementary problem, and bigger than that, it is the community problem. To change this perception, and it is changing, our group has taken a lot of different actions. Some of them are to open the communication lines between what is happening at the high school all the way down to the pre-K teachers. For example, when the ACT results were released, we put out an email that went to every teacher in the district explaining what the ACT was, what it measured, and letting those kindergarten primary teachers know that the beginnings that they set, that foundation, is impacting these ACT scores. We've also partnered with Berea College in order to get another Gear Up grant. This grant that you also kindly provided us with a mechanism to partner with the Chamber of Commerce and develop a media campaign. Our students designed and worked on the media campaign. We have two slogans. We have two focuses. One is to stay in school. And the slogan for that is, your dreams are tied with a key that only school can unlock. The second phase was to get those students who had dropped out back in, either back in school or back into adult ed, but making sure that every person in Clay County has either a high school diploma or a GED. And the slogan for that is, dropped out of school, drop back in. These slogans are going to be seen in newspaper ads beginning this month and in businesses. And the reason we chose October to start this campaign is the fact that we had done some research with Dr. Ann Little Burns. And what we found out is that students start to school, but when they drop out, it's at the end of October and Thanksgiving, after the grades have come out, when things start getting tough. So this is why we want to phase our campaign to happen now. We are seeing results in Clay County, and I am so happy about this. For the first time, Clay County got a yes on meeting our graduation goal. That is huge. The class of 2011 left us. And when they left, we asked every student, what are your plans? 100% of those students self-reported that they had plans after school, and they were specific. 84% said they were going to college. 16% said they were either going to work or to military. Now, when you're in the hallways, you begin to hear students talking about life after school, and that goes beyond going to the house and sitting. So, thank you for this seed money to help us continue to impact our students. Thank you.
Does anyone have questions for Dr. Allen or the Clay County project? No? Okay. Our next grantee from April, our first phase, are Monroe County Schools, so I'll ask them to come up and share.
We kind of knew what our plan was to work on relationships and to do the home visits, but we felt like that was something that, yes, we could go to these homes, we could take something to them, we could say hi, we care about you, we hope that you have a good year, but we knew that we had to open our eyes a little more than that. We wanted to get more out of it than just to carry out some steps that we had written down that we would do. And so we were thinking about, how do we really get something out of this? And so we realized that it's about more than just seeing where these kids live and trying to have sympathy or empathize, whatever the case may be. It's about seeing what resources are available within our district, within our school, within our community, to be able to help the students out and their families. So we started thinking about Ruby Payne. And I think it was 7 years ago, our district did a study with Ruby Payne. And so when we started kind of whispering Ruby Payne, some more Ruby Payne training, it was like, we've already done that. And I'm like, yes, and that kind of felt validated. But then we're like, but the staff has changed within those 7 years. We've had people to retire. We've had new teachers to come in, changes. But bigger than that, our community has changed. Industry has left us, and we have had several families to move out as a result of that. We have had some families to move in, but if you look at the concrete data surrounding most of our families, they would be families that would qualify for the free and reduced lunches, so that lets you see that they fit into that framework for poverty. And so we decided that, yes, we want to do these home visits, but we want to accompany this with a study of Ruby Payne again. And so then we started laying out the plan. I want to point out that Ruby Payne and Bill Daggett suggest that rigor plus relevance plus relationships equals higher achievement. And of course, anything that we do within the school setting is about that higher achievement. And we know that that means knowing our students and their individual needs is just as important as the content and the pedagogy. If you don't have that connection with the student, it's a loss of achievement. And I think that's something that we say on the surface all the time. We have to connect with kids. We know that. But we can say it and believe it, but we don't always live it. We can get caught up in all of the tasks that we have, all the things that we have to do, and we don't get that deep bond with the kids like that we sometimes need and that they must have in order to be able to overcome the barriers that they face. At our school district, and probably in yours as well, our PD focuses on academic content and strategies. And we've been missing a vital piece of that puzzle, and that was on how to really build relationships with kids through identifying what it is that they need and then tapping the available resources to help them to get it. I will be honest and tell you, whenever I first found out that Rhonda had written the grant and that we had received it and that, the focus would be in something of this direction, I was nervous about how to spend our precious PD time on this whenever we have Common Core rollout and we have to deconstruct standards and get everybody ready to go with that. But then we realized that I realized, maybe I should just say myself, but I think, a lot of us realized that we might as well be teaching to the wall if we have not made that connection with the kids. And it's not just about them liking us, but it is about helping them to overcome the barriers that they truly do face and getting the connection with them so that we can deliver information, teach them, and it soaks in. It doesn't meet a wall. Ruby Payne defines poverty as the extent to which an individual does without resources. And she emphasizes that the ability to leave poverty depends on many resources, not just financial. So that was a big thought in my mind the entire time, is that if we want to have the connections with kids, then we really have to think about what resources they need. And it can't just be, we've come to see you, we brought you some pencils and paper, and we're ready to see you for the year. But it's about trying to talk to the family, trying to pay attention to some things that would stand out to us, and then tap the resources that they need. And
Started looking, I'm sorry, what are the questions, the question papers were could you answer these questions? And we sat down in our planning meeting, and the first one was, do you know what day the local supermarket throws out the best food into the trash? And our principal went, oh, but that doesn't happen here. And I said, oh, but it does. We have families that live by that every week that knows which supermarket throws out which foods on which days and which one are more accessible to them. And to totally come to that realization that we have families that live like that. We asked these with our teachers, how can you pay your light bill if you don't have the money to pay your light bill? How many times can you go through leading through the year? How much does it pay? How much is kerosene a gallon? How long does it take to warm up your house? Because a lot of us, although we may have come from a lower background in our education through our jobs, we've kind of forgotten how it was like to live that paycheck to paycheck. When you had to wait to pay one bill on the next bill. And opening those teachers' eyes to know, if a kid walks in your door that day, that may be the victory that he got there. Because you don't know what happened to him, and you don't know what house he's living in. We've got kids living without running water. We've got kids living without electricity. And for them to come into the room, we need to meet them where they are and take them where we want them to be. These resources are many, not just the financial, but sometimes it's just going, hey, we care about you, and that emotional resource. We've also talked with mental health counselors. We work pushing kids to counseling or helping families get into family counseling. It might be directing them to a church in the area that might have a program that can help them. It might be any of these support systems, and just opening up and mentoring and knowing that you care means a lot for a lot of these kids.
Okay, so why is the idea of resources important? If we want to teach these kids or even help them with the situation. Say if we do have a connection with a kid and we want to help them to get through it, we have to know what's available and how to use it, how to access it, and how to see it through to the end. And put there in parentheses, not just from a middle class point of view. From the onset of the PD that morning we come in, we talked about trying to change our perspectives. It's very easy for us to see things from our own personal standpoint, but for it to really be beneficial, we were going to have to try to change our perspective, maybe to think about what it was like as we were growing up and we didn't have the things that we had then. Maybe it's to think about how immediate family member lives. You have to try to change your perspective and get into that mindset of others. And then from that to try to influence those non-financial resources. I think that a lot of times when we think about this situation, poverty, you automatically think about what financial resources are available. But sometimes if you just try to tap the financial resources, that's just an easy fix, but it's not really going to help the family to overcome the barrier. So it is about looking at everything that's available. Using the funding, all teachers were issued the book, A Framework for Understanding Poverty, again by Ruby Payne. We all participated in the book study. We grouped all of our staff members, certified, classified, and administration, in a deliberate attempt to help to have a lot of different mindsets working together at a table. If we felt that if we just let people choose their groups, that a lot of times we tend to gather with people that think similarly to us. So we wanted to open eyes and try to have different thoughts coming through. Yes. And then also we grouped teachers for doing the home visits as well. And it wasn't necessarily who they did the book study with. It was just, I think I've got it in there somewhere, but we wanted to make sure that we had males and females in the groups, and we have some teachers that are new to the county. We wanted to have somebody that had lived in the county and knew the area. Those kind of things went into play. So how was our PD carried out? How was the money used? Welcoming intro that morning was the Could You Survive in Poverty? Ms. Rhonda showed you the slide with some of those questions. And just as our principal was like, that's not really, those are a little far-fetched. Well, I also set it up with one that was, could you survive in middle class? And the questions surrounding that were things like, I know how to get my children into Little League or piano lessons or soccer. I know which stores are most likely to carry the clothing brand my family wears. I was like, yeah, I can relate to that. I understand that. So then that shows our perspective. We understand what we know. So then we back up again and look at those questions that families in poverty, that is a realization to them. After that, we did a little activity where give all tables the slips of paper that had some abstract items listed on the paper, things such as social security number or an address, and they were to take that slip of paper and think about what would the concrete representation be to a family in middle class and a family in poverty. And for an address, for a family middle class, that's a goal for many of us, is to have the home of our dreams and that we live there and raise our family. But for some of our students, some of our families in poverty, the address is something that changes fairly often because we have to move before someone comes to collect the rent. It is not all that uncommon for a student to not know their address because it has changed so frequently. It's not something they see as permanent. So again, that was all about setting up that perspective. If we don't change our perspective, then we're not going to fully accomplish what we had wanted to accomplish. From there, we started the book talks. They had been given the book, so at this time, we had everybody in the assigned groups, and they were given time to focus on that chapter, to discuss it, bring out some important points, analyze what they had found, and just put together some thoughts on chart paper. We then went around and just reviewed the book by going over the chart paper. At that time, we then looked at a Monroe County resource guide that has been put together, and it has resources all the way just from the extension office to the food pantry. Anything that you can think about is contact information, phone numbers and addresses. So we thought that was an important part, that we had to think about what resources are available so that when we visit these kids, we can think about which of these would meet their needs when we're teaching them throughout the year, and we're trying to strengthen that relationship through thinking about their needs and not just talking to them. We can think about those resources. And then we looked at Monroe County census information, just pulled it up on the internet, looked at some of the statistics that really point out and talked about what it meant for our school, what it meant for our community. And then our migrant program come in and talked about guidelines for successful home visits. There's some safety concerns, dogs was a big one. We did. We had a teacher bit by a Rottweiler, but we were warned to watch out for dogs, but it still ended up happening. And then the last thing was just talking about the building relationships and mutual respect, and just went over some guidelines for how things that we can do, calling someone by name, that makes them feel important. But just some little things that we probably have heard and know, but just to put back into our head again. And we went to lunch, and then after that, we came back and went with our designated group and completed all of the home visits. Over 80 students were targeted, and we did this based upon academic performance and the need for knowing someone cares. And we keep track of our students every month. We chart their progress, and then in our PLC meetings, we talk about this progress. And, it may be looking at failing grades, or it may be looking at attendance issues. It may even be looking at C's when a student has had A's. But we look for patterns and talk about then, is there some type of intervention needed with a student? So we looked at students based on that data that were not performing where we felt that they really needed to, and then thought about, is maybe a connection needed? Can we target this kid and try to strengthen our connection to let them know that school is a comfort zone for them? We've already mentioned that they were all selected, and we had 3 to 4 members and composed of males and females. Students were assigned to the groups based upon physical addresses. One thing that I think would be ideal is if we could say, well, I really think I could make a connection with this kid, so I would like to visit them. And you pick who you think you could make a connection with. I think that would be the strongest way to do this. But this was one area that we decided to let logistics take over, because you would be going all over the county to try to make these different addresses. So we basically just had our transportation director
Go through a group of kids in the areas that he knew that they were.
close. And then we give everybody logs to complete as they did the visits, and it just had the child's name, the time that they visited, what parent or guardian did they speak to, and then rate the success of the visit, because that was one thing we want to think about. How were we welcomed in? And then take notes, and also make notes of any resources that were requested. And a big thing was then to follow through and help get those resources that they had requested.
And then they continued those visits after the school year. This had started before the school year.
Our results is that we do work harder to change our perspectives in order to reach a higher understanding of students. We try harder to tap the available resources to benefit individual students, and we do believe that we have strengthened the bonds with many of our students. So we have worked to fill in the gaps, to find the missing piece. Again, want to thank you for the opportunity to do this.
Good morning. Again, on behalf of Pulaski County Schools, we want to say thanks to Congressman Rogers and Forward in the Fifth and Center Rural for Development, and also the LEAP grant opportunity. Our initiative is a little bit different because the initiative actually began 4 years ago, and this grant opportunity was allowed us to continue that. So I'm very passionate about this, and it actually happened my very first year as being elementary supervisor for this district, and we were invited to a meeting at the public library, and many of you know Miss Carol, that is the children's department director there at the library, and she invited myself and the media specialist from all 8 of our elementary schools, and we sat down and she had this dream. And so 4 years ago, this came to life, and because of Miss Carol and the public library in conjunction with our schools. But we were talking about the Hoffman family had donated a bell to place outside the library. And so that bell has become known as the literacy bell, and it is outside the children's department of the library. And actually, this family is the librarian at Southern Elementary. And so we had this big discussion about how we could make this real for our students. And our concern was that the students would earn the opportunity to go to the library to ring the literacy bell, but maybe they wouldn't get there because of transportation or many other reasons. And so we were able to work it out in order to provide bus transportations for all of our students. So again, I want to give you a little background information about the literacy bell. The students are given the opportunity in kindergarten and first grade. Those are the students that we're trying to reach. And of course, if that goal is not met in first grade, it does continue after that. But our kindergarten and first grade is where we are focusing. And we want those students to become independent readers. And so they have the opportunity to choose a book that is available in the library. And this is a cold read, so the students don't practice the book over and over and over and then come read it to the media specialist. But this is actually a cold read. So when the teacher feels that the student has become an independent reader, then they have the opportunity to go to the media specialist or their school principal and to read a book of their choice. We have a group of books that they can choose from. And once they have read that book, then they are awarded a ticket to attend a Literacy Bell celebration. This year, we have 4 Literacy Bell celebrations planned. We just had our first one last week, which was a huge success. We had 90 students from our 8 elementary schools who earned their way, and that was from the beginning of school this year, to the library to ring the bell. The students are transported there, and like I said, we do that 4 times. We're planning to do that 4 times this year. They have a huge day that's just celebration for them. I mean, we honor them, and we've had special guests such as Kentucky's First Lady Jane Bashir. We've had pro baseball player Josh Anderson. Sometimes we have a visit from a local magician, Greg Farmer, and their very favorite is Ronald McDonald. And so that's who was with us this past week, was Ronald McDonald, and he is a huge hit with the kids and the parents as well. But during this opportunity to come to the library, it's an outreach to our parents, grandparents. We have aunts and uncles. We have lots of folks that come out to the Literacy Bell celebration. So, for example, this past week, we had our North End schools come at 11 o'clock that morning. And so we had a large group of students, and then they were accompanied, of course, by their parents and grandparents as well. And so we had a great turnout. And I do want to give thanks to Miss Carol there at the library, because she is a huge help, and it only works because of the collaboration that we have with them. While at the Literacy Bell, the students are all also treated to cupcakes and pizza, so that's very important too. But we also, when they leave the Literacy Bell, they receive a goodie bag, and we used our funding from the LEAP grant to provide books for our students. So they receive a literacy goodie bag, which includes bookmarks and stickers and 2 brand new books. And so we take for granted that our students all have books at home like our children. I have a son that's in 3rd grade, and we take that for granted. And we have so many children that the only time maybe that they get their hands on a book is at school. And this opportunity to go to the public library, even, we ask the students, how many of you, this is your first visit to the library? And it's always surprising how many hands go up, even in our local community, that they have not made that visit to the library. And also, I'm sure that we have parents that are there for the first time because of the Literacy Bell. One of the things that we share with the students, there is a poem that's written, it's located above the bell in the library, and it says, "Ring this bell when first you read a book, all by yourself, its message clear to all who hear, I am a reader now." And so when the students come to the library, they sign their name in a book, and it's known as the Book of Names, and that signifies that they have become a reader. And then after they sign their name in the book, and it's always a big deal because they say, do we sign our first and our last name? So, and remember, we're talking about 5, 6, 7, 8-year-olds here. So then they go from the book over to ring the bell. And I'm going to show you a little PowerPoint, some pictures so that you can see what this looks like. But they go over and ring the bell, and we tell them that every time this bell is rung, then the whole city of Somerset knows that a child has read their first book. And so, so this is a very, very important time in the lives of those students. And we let them know that each time they open a book, it's the beginning of a new adventure. It's the way to go places that we may not have opportunity to go. And when Ronald McDonald presents to them, he talks about different places that he has visited, and he gets out the book and they look at pictures and they talk about the cultures and different things. But so we want the children to know how important that reading is, and it was ironic that the other participants were middle school, high school initiatives, and like you said, it begins in the elementary. It begins with our preschool students and before. I want to make sure that I don't forget something. We also talk about, and this was neat, how you were talking about college career readiness and those standards, but we also talk about college attainment when the students are there. We ask them, what comes after elementary school? After you leave 5th grade and you leave Pulaski Elementary or Nancy Elementary or Shopville Elementary, where do you go? And some of them will say college. And then they're like, no, there's middle school. And so then after middle school, what happens? Oh, we go to high school. And then after high school. And so we ask them, how many of you are planning to go to college? And so all those hands go up around the room. And we tell them that for this group, for example, the kindergarten students will be our 2028 graduates after 4 years of college, and our first graders would be 2027. So we talk about that, and so they know that number, and they go back to school and tell everyone in their school that they're going to graduate from college in 2028. And that seems like a long way away, but it'll be here in a blink of an eye, I'm sure. This past year, we had more than 60% of our kindergarten and first grade students to reach the goal of coming to the library and ringing the literacy bell, and we hope to continue to improve that each year. And of course, our overall goal is to continue our efforts to build striving readers throughout our community. And we've had articles published in the in some magazines through the library. We've had other communities to come and visit the library, and I invite each of you, if you have the opportunity, and I wanted to share the date. The next one is scheduled for December the 15th. We have one on March 8th, and then our last one is scheduled for May 3rd, and that may change according to our last day of school. But I invite each of you, if you have the opportunity, to attend one of our Literacy Bell celebrations. They always begin at 11 o'clock. And when you arrive at the library, you'll see buses parked outside, and you'll hear lots of buzz happening throughout the library as the students come in. At this time, I want to show you pictures. That will mean more than anything that I have to say. There's a special picture in here for Congressman Rogers. I think you'll recognize someone. There was music, but there's no sound. So there's Miss Carol, for those of you who do not know her. And there's all of our boys and girls surrounded by their parents and grandparents. This picture was a 4th grade group from Shopville. Their chorus actually came and performed for our students that day. There's Ronald. This was a 4th grade group of students presenting a recycling skit. There's a familiar face. That's his grandson. So you can see they're very excited to get to come to the library, and there she's signing her name in the book, and he's signing his name. And as you can tell by the way he's dressed, this is a special day for us. And there's the bell. There's the bell located. And we actually tell our students, too, that they can hear it all the way to Lexington. We make it a big deal. So again, I just want to say thank you for this opportunity to continue this endeavor. Thanks.
Any questions for Pulaski County? No? Wow, what work has already happened, and we're excited to hear from our second phase and second round of grantees in the next several months. Again, I would encourage you to please work with one another. I saw some folks jotting notes down, and I hope this is the beginning of some start of great things as we continue to work together across the region. As we wrap up, I want to mention a couple things. One is, in each of the presentations that I heard from folks this morning, and I anticipate from the ones that we have just awarded funding, part of that all centers around the slogan that Ford and the Fifth has recently created, and that's energizing students and empowering communities. All of the work that you have done would not have been possible, number one, if you are not energizing students, wanting them, encouraging them to be in their seats in those buildings. We know that learning does not take place if they are not in our schools. So what are the connections? How can we help those students actually move into and be excited and have fun as they enter the school and the activities that we offer? The other thing is empowering communities. It's about sustainability. It's about being a catalyst for improving education across the region. Going back to Ford and the Fifth's mission statement, we want to be, and we are striving and working each day to be a catalyst for some of the changes that many of you mentioned in your local communities. Reach out and work with your partners, chambers of commerce, local businesses, those folks. They're immensely important in the work that we're doing. And I appreciate each and every one of you for the work and the impact that you're having on education. Thank you very much.